Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I first would like to thank all those present in the room after the nice dinner yesterday night. I would like also to thank all the organizers, our host, and the EBN team for the very good, excellent organization of this conference. Let me come now to the structure of my presentation. I will start with some reflections about the economic crisis and about some reflection also about the main instruments of innovation policy before to come to my main purpose, which are technology parks and clusters, and some of the trends that we can see at European level. Clearly, we are living in a context which is not easy. We are facing an economic crisis and a financial crisis since 2008, and we do not see up to now the end of the tunnel. This is clearly a financial crisis, but not only a financial crisis. It's also an economic crisis, and that's why it is important to find a new growth model for Europe. And this, from my point of view, will have to take into account at least three parameters, which are increasing social and environmental challenges, the importance of innovation-induced productivity growth, and also the necessity to catch new demands, sectoral or geographical, and fast-growing markets. Concerning the main instrument of innovation policy, I will not come into the details. It's no more my job. As Philippe said, it was my job, but not today anymore. But I will concentrate on two specific aspects, which are innovation infrastructures and cluster initiatives. But I would like to mention also some other aspects of an innovation policy, because it is clear that clusters themselves will not solve all the problems. We need to have first very good framework conditions. We need also to have a cultural and institutional environment which are favorable for innovation. And this is important to not forget this, as it is important to know that the knowledge triangle, innovation, education, and research is also key for the development of our countries. Let me come now to innovation infrastructures. I'm in Sophia Antipolis now since a bit more than 18 months. And I can share with you some of my comments, I would say, on what is important in a technology park. First, I think it's clear that we need a vision. We need a vision for a policy, but we need also a vision for the development of a technology park. And we need clear objectives and mid-term, long-term strategy in order to reach these objectives. We also need a very good model of governance. This is very important, and I can see that in some countries we don't have the good conditions in order to have this model of governance. And I would insist, because we are relatively close to Sweden, on the triple helix model. The fact that governmental bodies, local authorities or national authorities, have to share their power with the representatives of the enterprises and also those of the research and education world. This is important in order to have a good governance of a technology park. Another aspect which is important, of course, in a park like in a cluster, this is the networking of innovation actors. The links between the industry and the universities, the links between the industry and the research centers are clearly very important, and all those synergies which can exist in a park will be heavily depending on the social glue, what I call the social glue, what we call also the cross-fertilization, and that will exist inside the park. That means we need to have places where all the actors will meet, will exchange, in order to create this specific spirit that exists in some technology parks like Sophia Antipolis. Last but not least, of course, but this you know this better than me, incubators and cooperation structures are also very important, and we have to take care about them in order to help for entrepreneurship and the development of startup companies. And for that, we need also access to finance. And we have in Sophia Antipolis a very proactive club of business angels. This is important, but we also need venture capital, and we also need a banking system which is open to the risk. This is less and less true. A few words about Sophia Antipolis. Sophia Antipolis is very close to the French Riviera. Perhaps you know better the names of Cannes, Nice, or Monaco than the name of Sophia Antipolis. But we are at a few kilometers of these places. We are also at a few kilometers of the international airport of Nice. This is, of course, a place where it is quite easy, and not easy, but quite nice to live, because we have the sun, we have the mountains, and we have the sea, which are close. And this is probably one of the factors of success of Sophia Antipolis. A few pictures about Sophia Antipolis to show you the buildings, the type of buildings that we have in Sofia. And the fact that all these buildings are in the forest, in the nature, and this is an important also characteristic of Sophia Antipolis, that we are close to the forest, we are close to the day-to-day life in such an environment. A few statistics to give you the importance of the place. We have 35,000 people working in Sophia Antipolis. We are one of the biggest in size technology parks in Europe, with 2,400 hectares. And we have between 1,300 and 1,400 companies working in Sophia Antipolis. It's also an international technology park. 68 nationalities are represented in the park, and this is quite impressive in Europe, I believe. We have 5,000 researchers, 15,000 engineers, and this represents, of course, a lot of brain that is also an attractive aspect of Sophia Antipolis. The main topics are ICT. I would say that ICT is clearly the main topic in Sofia, with services related to ICT, and also some activities in biotech, health, and cosmetology, which are important. We have also some activities in the environmental field, and, but less in Sofia than now close to Nice. I'm now coming back on the main trends we can observe in Europe concerning cluster policy. First, the smart specialization. This is a new concept invented by the European Commission a few years ago, Dominique Fauré and some other professor. And this is also a new approach of regional policy. And I'm afraid for all those that would like to benefit from the structural funds in the future, you will have to make this exercise to define what is your smart specialization. A second element which is important, that is excellence. I think excellence is key. We have to be excellent perhaps in a niche, but it's better to be excellent in a niche than to be good in a lot of things. And this is true not only for the actors, for the enterprises or the researchers, but it's also true for the framework conditions and, for instance, the infrastructures of a park or the infrastructures of a cluster. and also for the management teams of these clusters. Third trend we can observe that the cluster policy is more and more concentrating, focusing on clusters initiatives in emerging industries. You had a very good example with your bright speech concerning clean tech technologies, but this is not only clean tech, but also creative industry, which are clearly among those in emerging industries, knowledge-intensive services and so on. And this emerging industry need for their development some cluster initiatives. Last but not least, internationalization is key, as the first speaker said. A few words about smart specialization. When I was in Brussels, I was always a bit upset to see that every mayor in every city would like to have a biotech incubator or an ICT incubator and so on. And we have to be focused. We have to define what could be what are our strengths on which we can build. And we cannot build all on the same strengths, and this is important to define a niche where we are excellent on the market. Too many regions, as I said, are selecting the same technologies, and we need for that to be creative. We don't have to copy the other regions. We have to find our own way, and this is clearly a good principle behind the smart specialization. And we have also to fight against fragmentation and duplication of investment, and also to encourage specialization. The fact that the single market is not a perfect market, if I can say, is an obstacle to this specialization process in Europe, and we need to help this also with some political decisions. And, but you can have a good concept, and I think that smart specialization is a good concept. But what is important, that is the way you will implement it. And this could be the problem. I hope that the devil will not be in the details of the implementation of this concept. Why excellence? I think this is another aspect that I noticed when I was in Brussels, that there are many cluster initiatives in Europe. In 2008, there were more than 2,000 initiatives in Europe. This is probably too much. There are too many initiatives, but we lack perhaps some world-class clusters, and we need to have more world-class clusters. That's why excellence in the science base is not sufficient. We need to turn research results into innovation, and this is essential, and clusters, of course, can help for that, because clusters are about open innovation, and these open innovation models facilitate such excellence. I would also to underline what I call the snowball effect. That is that if you have an excellent cluster with an excellent team, you will attract excellent people. And you can see that with the Silicon Valley, for instance, that all young researchers would like to go to the Silicon Valley. We have to have also our Silicon Valleys in Europe, and to attract the best researchers of the world. And of course, to have an excellent cluster, you need also to have an excellent team to manage this cluster. This is important, in particular for the SMEs participating in the cluster. A few words about emerging industries. As I said, there is a need to support the emerging industries. This is related with what I said at the beginning of my speech. We need to find a new economic growth model in Europe, and for that we have to facilitate the development of these emerging industries. As I said, creative industry, clean tech technology, energy efficiency, and so on are among these creative industries like e-health, because we are becoming a bit old in Europe. But there are also some other technologies which are important, and I would like, I started that before to leave Brussels, I would like to underline the important role, the important diffusing role of enabling technologies in the economy. And they are, because they are diffusing in a lot of sectors of activity, and of course, they help for the modernization of the industry in many sectors. Last but not least, internationalization. I would say that international cooperation is important in every area of activity, in research, in knowledge transfer, of course, in production, in market access, and etc. And this, we have to have it in mind because we are operating in a global world and we need to cooperate at international level. And for that, the firms, the companies participating in a cluster need to have access to international markets and to develop strategic alliances. We are ourselves, as the foundation of Sophia Antipolis, involved in some European projects concerning inter-cluster cooperation to target specific countries, to define strategies, and this is a good example of what we can do at European level. That is because for a single cluster, it's perhaps too difficult to define an international strategy and to apply it. It's better perhaps to create some inter-cluster structures in order to help for that. And that's what we did in some European projects. And this is, from my point of view, an interesting way to follow. Other things that we will organize in the coming months, we'll organize matchmaking events to facilitate the search of partners in a few specific countries. We will organize 3 events this year in Brazil, in Japan and in Tunisia, and we will organize 2 others next year in Korea and in India. And we also try to push at the French level this time the concept of platform of services for companies to help them to become international. For instance, we have a project in order to help them to define their strategy, to help them to access the finance, and also to help them to find partners in some specific countries. I guess I have to finish now, and thank you very much. And I hope I can answer now the question, if there will be any.